Good morning and welcome to another episode of GM Tips. I am GM Rick, and today I want to focus a little more on mechanics. Now, again, this is going to go with obstacles. Remember, yesterday we talked about goals, obstacles, character, and attempt, and those being the real keys to encounters, adventures, and then campaigns. And that's how you build them. And so what we're going to do is we're going to dig down a little deeper into that. And I wanted to spend a little more time talking about that because I think so often we think that the obstacle is just the monster. And it's a great part of it, but it doesn't have to be the only part of it. So let's spend a little time there. And I hope it helps digging down into these a little more with you as a GM. Again, this can be a little more centered at Pathfinder and at D&D 5e, though you can adapt this to really any system, any D20 system, and even a D6 based like a GURPS system. You just need to know how to adapt it for saving throws and damage effects or other effects. And so you can take what we're hitting here for an outline and use it pretty much across any system. It's just I'm going to focus a little more in the two systems I'm a little more familiar with. So let's take a look at what we think obstacles are. What is an obstacle? An obstacle is something that stands in the way, and I'm not going to use Squeegee's reference. I love his reference, but I'm like, because there's going to be kids watching this, so I'm going to just kind of avoid it a little bit and keep it PG. It's a block. It's something that keeps the party from achieving their goal. And that's really what you want to do. You don't want to destroy the party. You just want to keep them from their goal. Now, total party kills and other things happen from these things sometimes, and you know what, it is what it is. Have some fun with it, you know. So what are the obstacle types that we can take a look at? Well, there's a couple different obstacles. I look at it as there are physical obstacles, there are spell effect type of obstacles, or influences, odd power type of things. And then there are the groups and organizations that can be obstacles. So let's take a look at this a little bit. Number one, the one that you guys know the most, and the one that everybody loves to hit on and put in front of the party, are monsters. And monsters can be NPCs, they can be monsters, they can be a little bit of anything when it comes to that. So maybe the gelatinous cube that comes down the aisle. I was listening the other day to, or reading through some Twitter tweets the other day. One of the D&D 5ers, one of the critters on there from Critical Role, that follows him was having an adventure with her rogue, and she was telling me a little bit, you know, the thing was, oh no, something shiny is coming down the hallway. Oh no, brr, 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 brr. In other words, she had been swallowed by the gelatinous cube. Cubes, oozes, other effects like that all fall into the kind of the monster role because they have hit points and there's something you can damage, and they have an armor class. So monsters can be as simple as a goblin raiding party, an orc party, or you can make them more challenging, like the gelatinous cube. Now remember, in the challenge ratings, ask yourself, will the party have a way around this? You don't want to put a monster in there that is so above their challenge rating, or the rating that is set there, that you destroy the party. I know some GMs love that and think it's an us versus them. It's not. So please think about that a little bit when you're designing it. Don't put them into a situation that's going to stress them. Because again, like Squeegee and I talk about, it's really important, and many others. Leviathan, DM Leviathan, there's a couple others on Twitter that are this way. The Pink Dice GM, we all kind of share the same thing. All you can do as the GM is set the goal and the obstacle. And then it's up to the characters and the attempts to make the story. And so what you don't want to make is that obstacle being the story to the point to where these people don't have the characters to make the attempt. If you're going to put them in a situation that's just like, and I'll give you a perfect example. There's Tomb of Horrors. Great adventure that was written by Gary Gygax, but it was also I'm going to use the word, it's a dick adventure. And the whole purpose of it is to kill off the party. It is to kill a party and put them in their place to show them that, you know what, they're not the most powerful thing under the sun. I'll be honest, I hate adventures like that. I think they're useless in my mind, and I understand what he was trying to accomplish and why he was trying to do it, but I would never do it because you're going to scare players off, you're going to lose a party, you're going to cause a rift when you kill off their favorite character just because you're being a pain. When you design your obstacles, don't do that. Just make it to the ragged edge to where you're going to take them to where they could die, but if they think it out and think outside the box, they're not going to. They might get a little scathed in the process, but they're going to make it. And so that's where the monsters are. Design your monsters that way. Look at what their current level is. Now, the challenge rating, there's a formula for it. I'm just going to tell you what I think works. If you have 4 party members that are playing, match the challenge rating to slightly, I'd go 1 level to 2 levels above the characters, and you calculate that through the challenge rating process. So take a look and read up on that a little bit. You can go out to Wikipedia and take a look under either system and see how they do that. So you can go Pathfinder Wiki or D&D Wiki, and either one will tell you on how to do that. I say look at the challenge rating of the monster. If it's a party of 4, you want to be 2 challenge ratings above. Okay? They can still handle that, and it'll put some challenge in there. And that's calculated by number of creatures and their challenge rating. Sometimes it's good to mix some ones in there. So say you got a ghast and 4 ghouls. That's kind of cool, because the gas adds a whole nother dimension. You got the ghouls, which are the nasties, but the gas adds a whole other nasty to it. Won't kill off a low-level party if they're smart. They're not, you know what? There's nothing you can do. If they're just going to run up there and smack it with their hammers and their swords, well, guess what? That is going to be what it's going to be, and it'll either come out in their favor or not. I love when parties are creative about taking things down. Factor in, are there spellcasters in the party? And if you know that from the beginning, you can kind of mix it in. But I would figure there's almost always going to be a wizard or sorcerer in the group that's going to be lobbing spells. There's always going to be some sort of cleric. There's always going to be fighter types. So design these kind of things with that in mind. The players will go out of that boundary, but at least if you design that way, you'll cover your bases on the obstacles. But look at monsters. And monsters there's so many different things. You don't have to always go with a dragon. You don't have to always go with the lich or other type of baddies. You can pick a lot of other neat things that are out there that are a lot of fun. I like putting in, now the characters hate this, swarms. Swarms are tough to kill. You can't critical hit a swarm. Now let me reiterate that to you. You cannot critical hit a swarm. That is a pain in the rear end to a party, because they're going to want to critical monsters by rolling a 20. You can't on a swarm. A swarm doesn't have that effect. You're just killing off some little critters out of the swarm when you hit them. So a swarm is tough to kill, and it engulfs the party, and it's hard to run away from because it surrounds a party real easy. So swarms can make an effect really fun with a party. Swarm of rats, swarm of beetles, a swarm of spiders, a swarm of wasps. These are all fun things that you can throw at a party that they're not going to know how to handle immediately. And it'll make it fun for them because they got to run around and figure out, how do I beat this? So you add a little spice. The second thing that you can use, and this is more of a mental thing, are riddles. Riddles are fun. Really think your riddles out, look your riddles up. Make them challenging for your parties. Unless they really are riddle fanatics. Sorry, I got a little bit of sinus this morning. Really look at the riddles and kind of go at them a little bit with some really tough ones. And you can do a series of riddles that take the party through, unless they figure it out, the creature that has what they want won't give it to them. And make the monster, or the creature that has it, very difficult to beat up physically in combat. So the riddle becomes then the focus way they got to think out of the box. Or do it as a kind of a magic mouth telling the riddle, and only way this unlocks is this way. And you put the DC to unlock it at very high, so the characters would have to literally roll a natural 20 to get it. It forces them to think a little bit out of the box. Now again, I'm not talking about so much making it real rigid, but but make the riddle challenging. There's other ways around riddles. You can find other ways in. Maybe it's another secret door somewhere in the dungeon that will get you in there. Never limit them just to the one thing. Give them a second side option in case riddles aren't their thing. But a riddle will make it fun for them because it gets them working together, putting their heads together, and really thinking. Don't let them use their electronic devices to look up riddles. Especially don't pick one on the internet that's easy for them, because they will do that, and you got to limit that as a GM. Spell effects. I love spell effects. Spell effects are hard to counter. Sorry, I'll give you a little more light here. That's what happens on days that are cloudy. So, spell effects. You want to use spell effects with a party. So it could be a glyph of warding. It could be a hold on a door that you put on a door. It could be a magic mouth. It could be a device that has a wand in it that shoots out spell effects. So maybe it's a paralyze or a charm or suggestion. Don't just always use damage. See, a lot of players, and we had a rogue like this, and I keep going back to him because he was one of the most fun elements for me as a GM. Low wisdom. Everybody picks a score, and unless they're a cleric or somebody that needs wisdom and perception, they pick low wisdoms. So suggestions, charms, holds, those wreak havoc in a low wisdom party. And it makes just their life miserable. You're not trying to make it unfun for them, but it's like, dadgummit, if I'd have just put another 2 points in my wisdom, I wouldn't be having this. And it adds that little chaos effect. Again, you're not trying to kill them, you're just trying to make it a little more challenging as an obstacle. Haunts. I love haunts. Haunts are effects that literally it's like a replaying of something. So maybe it's a death of a person, or they're committing suicide, or maybe it's them running into a battle and dying, or dying at the hands of a loved one, or there's just all kinds of different haunts that you can do. And the haunt has an effect component that they have to make a save on. Usually it's a will save, or it's or in this case a wisdom save for D&D, or it is a fortitude save. And generally what it does is it has some kind of component. They're sickened, they're dazed, they're lost in the haunt to where they can't get out until they make 2 consecutive saves. It doesn't necessarily kill them off, but it makes them just... Haunts can have a powerful effect, and you can't hit it with damage. You can't spell it out most times unless you got a high-level spell. There's a way to dispel the haunt, but usually it takes the party figuring out how to dispel the haunt. And that's what you figure out. Maybe it's burying a bone of a loved one who was lost. Maybe it's recovering a locket that was important to them. It's something that will dispel it. Otherwise, that haunt just comes back and back and back. And it's a thwarting effect that doesn't necessarily kill, but it just thwarts the party's efforts on completing the task. Locks and traps. Locks and traps can be as simple as a DC 15 or 10 roll, where it's a simple lock, to something very complex. And locks can really thwart a party, especially if they don't have a rogue. They're trying to break down a door, and it's got a certain hardness, and you can make that hardness pretty hard if you want for them to knock down, so that they literally have to go and make that roll. Traps are the same way. Traps got 2 components. Number 1, you got to spot it, and then number 2, you got to disarm it, and that can have a good or bad effect. It can be something like poison. It can be contact poison. It can be acid. It can be fire. It can be a needle that comes out and pierces them with some other kind of illness or contagious disease. You can have a lot of fun with traps. It doesn't always have to be a spike pit. Remember that. Or a big drop into the middle of an abyss that kills them off. It can just be something that's really annoying and limits what they can do as a character. And so that's kind of fun, because then you get them to think out of the box, or they got to waste some spells and cures that they weren't expecting. And now you've made it a little tougher for them as a whole. An unknown force. I love that. An unknown force to me can be anything. It can be a god, a goddess, a ghost, some sort of higher being, or ill-willed substance that comes along and just really affects the party. An unknown force is hard to thwart. It is literally outside the party's ability to thwart. But yet, it kind of messes with them. And be careful with this, because you don't want to lockstep them into the story you want them to do. So don't use the force to lockstep or confine them. Just make it a little more hard for them, a little more challenging. Like, for instance, you can put an outsider or this strange figure that appears to them and puts a geas on them, which is a spell that basically compels them to go on a quest. That's cool. And they get damaged in their ability scores if they don't follow the geas, because it becomes painful. It literally cinches down on the characters. So it gives them a little bit of time to go off the beaten path, but it kind of keeps them to the geas. And all you're doing is, the end concept, you must rescue the maiden. Okay. You can put them through 15 things. As long as it's on that path to rescue the maiden, that's great. So they don't get harmed by it. But the moment they spend too much time just off into la-la land, that's when it kind of damages them and wakes them back up. And so that's a great thing sometimes as a GM, to keep them on an overall goal, but give them a little bit of latitude that they can go do something else. And it's up to you. You can word that geas. I know the spell says it's within a certain amount of hours or days. Look, as a GM, you have the right to kind of say, okay, you get 2 days to mess around. And then outside of that, you got to get back. Otherwise, you're going to be hurt and puppy. And that's what you do. You set that thing, and that gives them a little bit of latitude to have some fun, but not to go way off the beaten path. Outsiders or planar influences. Those can be high-level demons, devils, angels, archangels, Azamirs, archons, aeons. You can go across the board, and there are just so many different outsiders. Psychopomps. I always love psychopomps. They're pharasmas, little things that push people along, that hate undead but yet respect death and hate unnatural life. So those can be some fun ones to throw in. Maybe they come along and nudge the party a certain way, or limit the party, or kind of block the way a little bit. So the party, they're not necessarily the enemy to the party. They're just there to throw a roadblock in. A little bit of a speed bump, so the party has a harder time than just going straight down the narrow path. So they got to kind of take a side detour to get them there. Cults and secret societies. Oh, my favorite thing. And as a GM, I love those. You can make up any ones you want. You can take the ones off the world they're in. They are so much fun, because those are those unknown groups that the party just, they're looking around over their shoulders all the time, because they don't know who's a member and who's not. It's not obvious. Don't make secret societies obvious. Don't put their little badge on them saying, we are a secret society cult. No. Make it subtle. Make it people they least expect. The most friendly person to them is the secret society agent trying to thwart their effort. They're making suggestions to them that are false but believable. And this is where you use diplomacy and bluff, and you can really have fun with characters. This is where your NPCs don't have to damage a party, but by gosh, they sure make the life of the party miserable. Maybe they put a sleeping potion in the drink that leaves them sleeping, and they steal the thing that's important to the party, and now the party has to go figure out where that is. Utilize this in a fun way. Now, eventually they're going to make their saves. Eventually they're going to see who the secret society is. That's fine. Like Hydra on S.H.I.E.L.D. They have many tentacles, and you don't know who all those tentacles are. And they have many brains, and you don't know who the real brain of the bunch is. This is the fun. And even in secret societies, you've got power things going on between the different upper leadership. Maybe this one hates this one, or this one's more ambitious than this one. So you can factionalize this. You can have so much fun. Use it. I'm telling you. It is the most confounding thing to the players to figure out who's their friend and who is not. And you don't have to make it to where they want to kill them. It's just they're just annoyed that this thing just threw them off that they trusted. And now you have them looking over their shoulders. You have them looking at each other. Because what if one of the members of the party is a secret society member? That's a real fun twist if you want to put that in the beginning. So you can have some fun with factions and with secret societies and cults. They're just a real pain in people's butt. And then a physical. It can be something physical. So maybe it's a drawbridge, or it's an inner portcullis that comes down that they've got to somehow climb over a wall and open. It could be a ravine. It could be, the bridge that was once over the ravine that lets you into the lair has now fallen into disrepair and is real crumbling and not very good. It can be that typical bridge that you see in Indiana Jones with a few planks across it, the rope bridge that's falling apart because it's been there forever. Love those. Love them. We had ice over a bridge. Oh my gosh. Recent adventure. No joke. Poor Paladin. I was running him as an NPC that day, and my role as a GM failed. So Brian, I wish he was there. He would have probably done better than me, maybe not. His Paladin slips off the bridge and into the icy waters that are going towards a waterfall. So now the flying war priest in the party, the Superman of our group, has to make the choice of going over and fighting the bad guys that are on the other side of the bridge with the party, or go down and save the Paladin. What does he do? He goes down and saves the Paladin. And the cleric's taken out of the action because he's trying to throw a rope to help the war priest to attach it onto him so he's not out of the battle the whole time. And they tried to grip each other's hands and they failed. Oh my gosh. So the whole plan of the party falls apart. So now they got to deal with things now that they're at a disadvantage. They didn't die, I'll give you that, but it sure made their life a miserable place. And it was so much fun. And at the end of it, they're going to remember it because it's like, dadgum, I wish the Paladin wouldn't have slipped off the bridge. So utilize these obstacles. And there's other ones outside of this. You can do other things. But use the obstacles and really get your toolkit and plan different things along the path. And even if there's something in a written path that you're doing, take it and change it up. You can have so much fun with this. I hope this helps, and I hope you have a great time designing the obstacles for your players. Have a great day.